Welcome back to Simon and Whiten, the podcast at the nexus of media, politics, and business. I'm Christian Whiten, joined as always by co-host Mark Simon, who joins us from Canada. Say hi, Mark.
Hey, everybody. How are you today?
All right, lots and lots going on. China again in the news, along with some other countries. Russia inched in. Turkey did as well by crapping the bed on its currency, the lira. But let's stick with the Chinese, because talking about crapping the bed and some stock prices going down very, very fast. Companies, fairly solid, big companies. Didi, for one, being ordered, suggested to, told to delist from the New York Stock Exchange, Nasdaq, in order to presumably list at Hong Kong or Shanghai. And this is happening with other technology companies, not a particularly orderly process. They don't have their I's dotted and T's crossed on how these listings transfer and what happens to American equities if you own them. And so you have people bailing out in order to prevent a loss of liquidity. You'd hate to own a stock, and even if it's a big, formerly blue chip name, not be able to trade it. What do you think's going on here, Mark? Is this just a control thing by the CCP?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that one. Look, there's really no concern given to economics in terms of wealth of other individuals, in terms of company profits, until, like Evergrande, it affects the political stability. At this point in time, I think what we're seeing is, I'm not going to say I predicted it, but what I thought we would see for a long time is they are somehow under the belief that they can elevate Hong Kong and Shanghai to be these world-class markets by forcing Chinese companies to come back. In other words, let's get Didi, let's get all these other companies, let's bring them back. In addition to this, what they've done, they just released some statements and they've just released some orders that the Wall Street Journal is reporting on, saying that foreign money is not welcome in Chinese technology startups. So in other words, the Sequoia Capitals, all the other TPGs who really had enjoyed playing in China, they're not going to be so welcome in the high end of Chinese technology. Now, why are they doing this? It's really all about Xi Jinping being incredibly consistent. Let's give the guy credit. He's incredibly consistent. He doesn't want to do anything that they see enriching the United States, but more importantly, he thinks that by bringing all these things back, all these items back, there's somehow a zero-sum game that the money comes back, it stays in China, they build the Chinese markets, and therefore we are powerful. It is one of the things they actually, I think, fully believe that we'll get Didi back here, and then all the investors, because Didi is such a great company, will come back into China, not recognizing that you're destroying the personal ambitions of thousands of Didi employees who wanted to get their stock options outside of China. So you've made them a less attractive company to work for. Importantly, in the private equity world, Chinese private equity is incredibly unsophisticated. I know people will scream when I say that, but essentially they are money. They are the cash. They run behind all these other U.S. private equity firms that offer knowledge, that offer. Private equity is not just, Uncle McScrooge or Uncle McDuck, whoever the guy is, throwing gold coins out to people. They help a lot. Private equity provides a lot of value. The Chinese private equity companies, a few of them are quite good, but the vast majority of them are basically Uncle McDuck throwing quarters out to people, trying to track the U.S. companies. So I think this is going to be another example of China closing its doors on the world. How do you invest in it? Get out.
Right. Well, so you have a lot of people running around in Capitol Hill on financial networks saying that China is about to beat us. This is sort of a standard coming from 4 stars up in the Pentagon and on Capitol Hill. We're still ahead. China's very close behind. Semiconductors, we're still ahead. China's very. That's hard for me to believe that China's about to catch us on semiconductors, us being the free world, because the most sophisticated semiconductors are not made in America. They're made in Taiwan, although they're made with U.S. tools, which is how we were able to extend our export controls over countries like Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. I don't know. Is this, it seems like Xi Jinping has jumped too soon. They're still at best a middle income economy if you go per capita, number 2 behind us if you use nominal GDP, but they're 330 million of us, they're 1 point whatever, 4 billion of them. The number keeps growing, not for the long term. But I don't know. Do you think that this is going to hurt Chinese technology acquisition and across multiple fields?
I think first of all, certainly the West is going to respond. And if our private equity companies can't work there, after a while, basically, why should their private equity companies work here? The next part of this that's coming down, and I think it's going to be, I actually am looking forward to it. Most people don't. I think the next thing is going to be the limit of talent that moves back and forth. First of all, it's all a one-way move. Very few competent and very solid lab people, I should say the technicians and labs and who work in labs and everything are going to China. Most of we get some of their best and brightest talent. The problem is we've got some security issues with them. And I just think that the Chinese are going to pull that back. In other words, it's not going to be the United States that restricts these really high quality engineers from coming to the US. It's going to be the Chinese. I firmly believe that's coming because that's completely consistent with what they're doing. We have to build a world-class infrastructure. You go to school in the States, then we need you to come home. If you don't want to come home, well, maybe your mom and dad might have a few problems. You know what I'm saying? But I do believe firmly that that's where they're going. Look, again, one of my significant frustrations is people continue to look at the Chinese Communist Party or the Communist Party of China, whatever you want to call it. They continue to look at them as some type of rational economic actor. They are not. They are basically all about power, all about staying in power, all about keeping power. They do not make decisions that we would consider rational by our morals, our ethics, and our values. They are all about power, and they have no qualms whatsoever with using all the might that they have to essentially affect the changes they want and affect their agenda in a manner they wish.
All right, with just going a little bit micro now, so it sounds like until some of this, going back to the public equity part, it's probably best to avoid Chinese stocks while this is going on. And long term, that's clearly a questionable play. But what about things like Alibaba? It's near a 52-week low, a little bit off that, but not by much. Its price to earnings now down to 17 or 18. Any like short-term buys in here, or do you think it's better just to wait and watch?
I actually think I couldn't advise anybody in good conscience who really doesn't know the China market. If you're in Hong Kong, if you know the China market, if you know what you're doing, then you know what? It's essentially a way that we have to consider our investment dollars as, would you invest if a neighborhood was on fire? Would you go buy real estate without knowing where the fire is going to stop?
Right.
And that's my point. Look, why not wait a few months? Why not just sit here? Let's wait till after Chinese New Year and then buy it. Oh my God, you may miss it. Well, you know what? All right, so you miss you miss a 5 or 7 point run up. This is going on, and this is going to continue to go on until we see a more clear leadership picture in China. And we see some of these things, especially the Olympics coming up. I think we're going to see the Norwegians next, and we're going to see some of the other European countries join the boycott, diplomatic boycott. They've got political cover with all the English-speaking countries stepping up. Will the Japanese join it? Who will join it? You know what I'm saying? Essentially, and that's going to do nothing but roil markets. And people say, well, why would that roil markets? Because it's going to roil the Chinese. And to them, they view everything for them as a political. So, when people say, oh, it's going to happen here, it's going to happen there, in terms of the economic boycott, it doesn't mean anything. No, they will react, and they will react in negative manners, trying to impact people where they think they have pressure points, which initially is going to always be economic.
Right. All right, shifting gears here, although within the realm of communism. No, I'm just kidding. CNN, which previously a news channel, more recently a political tabloid. I read that somewhere. I didn't come up with it, but I thought pretty funny. So big changes there. Their one and only quote-unquote star was Cuomo, Chris Cuomo, finally forced out, ostensibly because he crossed the line in defending his brother, ousted as governor of New York. This is interesting to me that the dissent seemingly continues over a year after Donald Trump lost the election, coming up on a year after he left the White House. And, AT&T and Discovery, I thought they would have moved quicker once they merged, and they sort of pretend like CNN isn't their thing, but it clearly is. They own it. Why they wouldn't have either made drastic changes or flicked this booger off of their finger. What do you think? Where does CNN go going forward?
I don't think they have any idea. I worked inside media companies. I've invested in a couple in the past. CNN has a crisis of identity right now. CNN has an incredibly solid news gathering organization. I mean, CNN overseas is as left leaning as Al Jazeera, but you know what? They get stories. They know what they're talking about for the most part. It's really only when they come back to the U.S. that they actually start going crazy in terms of that. It's like the overseas left-wing British anchors can't control themselves. They're always going about Donald Trump. But when it comes to stories, they're excellent on China. They're very good on human rights. They have a very solid understanding of actually some very good correspondence in war zones. Their problem is that Jeff Zucker has made them an entertainment channel, much like the cable guys have, and their entertainment is essentially left-wing. They're basically throwing chum to the left-wing audience. I don't know how they get out of that. I think it's very, very tough for them. You've got an entire organization all the way through. I mean, you've worked in large organizations. This is 4, 5, 6,000 people who all have been recruited by what must be just a communist human resources department. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're all on the same mindset. You can't come in one day and go, hey, we're going to be the new Fox. That's not going to work. Here's what I would do at CNN. The first thing I'd do at CNN is I would probably continue to get rid of people like Chris Cuomo. Now, getting rid of Cuomo and putting this new guy in, they probably saved themselves a considerable amount of money. Just much like when they got rid of O'Reilly, and they put Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson still cost them a lot of money, but not as much as O'Reilly, and no rape charges. And then you've got
I was going to say fewer attorneys, but you put the the dot on the I there. Yep.
Alone. But the thing is that I think what they have to do is they basically, in my mind, I think the strength of CNN is going to be online. It's going to be basically clips. It's going to be news gathering. It's going to be attaching themselves to serious stories that where they can get ad revenue online. Let's remember, they actually stripped Jeff Zucker, the head of CNN, of the digital side. He was stripped of control of that, which was a pretty big blow because that's, you just took your guy out of the growth. I think if I was CNN, I'd find a different way to get my prime time going. I don't care, if you have to do Shark Tank, I'd do it, but I'd do news, I'd do anything else I'd do hard news stories, I'd do other things, I'd spend some money on journalists. But here's what I'd do right now. I would attack MSNBC and NBC and Comcast over the Olympics. For the next 60 days, I would be the human rights channel and look at this NBC. Look, NBC, their entire strategy is this on the Olympics. We are going to basically kiss China's ass and shoe shine and cover everything up until the Olympics start. Then once the Olympics start, we're going to take our hits for a couple of weeks. And then as the Olympics close, we're going to start doing tough China pieces. Okay. And then they'll try to protect our brand. So when you and I say, look at all this stuff that CNN's doing, they'll say, well, what about this piece? And what about that piece? That's their strategy. That's where it's coming out. I think people need to call them out on that strategy and then get them. But if I was CNN, look, don't go after Fox anymore. Fox is boring for you. It's just, that's like the rabid dog who's already watching. That's the wrong person to go at. The right thing to do is to basically MSNBC, CNBC, all the NBC guys are walking away, are walking away from human rights. They're all walking
Oh,
away from
sure.
it. All right. As they walk away from it, CNN has the opportunity to step in.
Yeah, no, that would be
The
it would
hell out of
be yeah, and you can attack NBC stylistically too, since their coverage of the Olympics absolutely sucks. I mean, everything is a human interest story. Everything is, so and so overcame this, horrible situation in America, this terrible country that, half of planet Earth wants to move to. And it's like, can I can I just watch some sports? Maybe
Oh yeah,
we'll
well
just
that's the
watch
other
the competition.
thing too is I mean, but they're going to take a beat. But I think the problem you really have is they don't care, and I can almost sympathize. You got a bunch of guys in their late 40s, early 50s, a lot of white guys, even the black guys now, and the Hispanic guys, and the white women. They're all sitting there in this little woke area, waiting for the next thing to come and attack them.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and so that's the problem that they're having at this point in time, is that in the next couple of years, I don't see a management team that's willing to do anything there. Zucker's on his way out. I mean, how much money does he have? He's made what, $200 million there in his career at CNN? Literally, that's how much he's been making.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm sure he's not a bad guy. So, he's loaded, he's got money, and now it's just about his ego. So I don't think in any way, shape, or form, there's no hope for CNN unless they actually decide to change what they're doing. And I think
Right.
that's really hard for them.
It's really hard unless, yeah. And probably AT&T and Discovery are also full of wimps and wouldn't force something down. That'd be very controversial if you sent someone. I mean, they'll never send a conservative. They never even send someone like, I mean, this is a long time ago, like Andrew Sullivan at the New Republic, a
Yep.
sort of, I don't know, a liberal conservative. I don't even know how to describe him at a liberal magazine. I mean, that's just beyond the pale. But think of just the absolute freak out. I mean, we think about the New York Times newsroom when Barry Weiss was there. Just complete meltdown that would happen.
I think the only advantage you have nowadays, and I don't know why people don't do it. We can talk about another media company, is you can fire people.
Right. So,
I mean,
yes, it's an advantage over government.
Your job is to report the news. That's why you have to take a straight news position. And when somebody shows up somewhere, you can't have it. You know what I'm saying? I've had recommendation inside companies. I'll always remember at Apple Daily one time we had first of all, Apple Daily, there was one minority at Apple Daily. It was me for like 15 years. I was the only white guy in the place. Couple of thousand employees. But one time we had somebody join, a very nice person. And again, there's three white people. The other two work for me. You know what I'm saying? And so we had somebody join, and she wanted to start, and she was Chinese American. She wanted to start an ethnic diversity group at Apple Daily. And it was like, but. And I said, "Do I get to join?" She goes, "No, this is for the ethnic Chinese." I go, "Hello, Chinese news company." My point is, you've got this mentality that moves into these companies, and they can't get rid of them. That was still one of the funniest things when she finally realized that, I'm fine here.
It was a very big group, but maybe she should go sell some ads or write some stories instead.
Well, she was pretty good at her job. That's why I kind of talked.
But that's good.
But it was hilarious when she had this moment, that she wasn't being oppressed by you're being oppressed by fellow Chinese. Your boss doesn't like you. But the thing is that I do think that really, I don't know how CNN gets out of this. And you know what? Some of these cable guys may not get out of it. CNN has to work hard. They got to move to digital hard. They have to move to real news. That's where their future is. Yeah. And living because of Don Lemon and Hans Cuomo, who can't keep his hands off girls, having those two guys as your face of serious news doesn't exist, doesn't mean anything.
Right. All right. Now flipping to the opposite side of the political spectrum, kind of more news this week on DWAC, which is the SPAC. We're heavy on acronyms here. That acquired or is acquiring Trump Media and Technology Company. And we've learned a little bit more about what this business is doing. They filed an 8K saying that they're under investigation by the SEC. Another AK sort of gave a hint about their business plan. It's too early to get a quarterly report out of them, nor do we know. And I mean, when they have their first quarterly report, it's going to have nothing but expenses. There's not going to be any revenue or income. A couple of things strike me. First of all, they're focusing first and foremost on social media. I'd argue, set aside the business part of making money, just what the conservative movement, whatever you want to call it, needs right now is not more social media. What it needs is upstream culture, movie production, maybe authors, screenwriters, things like that. Anyway, Trump is going complete opposite and easy. And they have a couple of screenshots up. They haven't released what their platform is going to be. It looks like a direct knockoff of Twitter. A couple things there, too. It just shows that the technology has so little patent, trademark, service mark protection that anyone can copy it. It's not the technology that makes it special. It's the huge network that Twitter has or Facebook has. So I look at this and I'm thinking, as predicted, these guys are going to be, I mean, Trump should be as far away from highly regulated public equity as you can get. And he's not. And he should be focusing on upstream, bringing in donors, saying, don't give more money to the Heritage Foundation or the ballet or your freaking college. Give it to people who create culture, and it's either conservative or just non-liberal. Not doing that. And then the cherry on the cake is Devin Nunes, who's a congressman who, did yeoman's work in exposing the deep state and its attempt to, impute phony collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign and take down the Trump president. Okay, he's a great litigator, a great congressman in hearings, but absolutely no background in running a media company and not an entrepreneurial one, no background in mentoring media talent. This just strikes me as the ongoing disaster. Am I being too pessimistic here?
No, it's a complete disaster. But the real thing is where I think there's. Let me agree with you and critique a few things at the first time. The first of all, let's go to Devin Nunes. Devin Nunes basically is sitting in Congress making what, 175, 180 a year, flying back and forth, mostly in coach class because they don't like him and don't upgrade him. Didn't he? Maybe he gets a ride with somebody every once in a while. Secondly, Devin Nunes, like a lot of Trump people, are just not going into the lobbying world and all that stuff because really nobody wants them. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Not going to the corporate world because basically nobody wants him. The establishment one. It's one of the more honest things about the Trump people. And the Trump people, nobody in the business, nobody in the connected establishment world wants them. The Obama people, the Clinton people, the Bush people. And the Biden people, of course, they all go in and out of these revolving doors. Basically, the Trump people, it's a one-way door. You walk in and you get kicked out. And when you're out of the D.C. loop, if you're a Trumper, as we've known with so many people, they do not really get a lot of play. We know that. You know what I'm saying? Goldman Sachs, all the other ones, they're not hiring Trump guys because of the potential blowback. Now, I think that's going to go away fairly quickly. And my understanding is it already is. But so Nunes is just taking a job. In other words, where else could Nunes get $500,000, $700,000 a year? He's just cashing out. Let's face it. That's the first thing. The second thing I see is really, I don't think Trump has any understanding of media. I think in his mind, he's like, I'm number one. A princess is number one. He thinks the whole world is watching him. The idea that, that he's only got this many people is hard for him to understand. Maybe there's 12 million people watching The Apprentice. There's 300 million people in the country. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't really understand that. I think Trump's real issue is he needs to go out there and be like a Netflix boss or somebody else and create content like you're saying. I think the problem is he doesn't know how to create content. And the other problem is there's no subtlety in conservative content. I don't know if you know that. People don't really follow that all the time. It's kind of like that TV show. One of the better conservative TV shows is Last Man Standing with Mike Allen. It's about the father with the 3 daughters and the wife, and he's very conservative. And he makes a lot of jokes, but the show in itself, the essence of it itself, is a conservative show. You know what I'm saying? It's a show that has conservative themes, family values, all these things. Those are the things that Trump needs to get out there. He needs to work on. He needs to find actors on. He needs to back Christian things. He needs to do things. In fairness, Shapiro is working on that over. They really have an eye for that. Their movies aren't very good, but they'll probably get better.
Mm-hmm.
And
Good.
just think, let Mel Gibson make a movie or something like that. Trump,
Mm-hmm.
and whether when it comes to content, well, there's enough conservative content out there, so find it a platform upstream. Fund debate shows, fund other things, do whatever you can. Social media is a hellhole. There's not as many people on it as you think. And it's actually the only thing Trump's going to do, and it might be a good thing, but it probably won't be, is he's going to basically, if he actually gets anything up and running, he's going to get 10 or 15 million conservatives on his site, but he'll never have a nickel in advertising other than the Black Rifle Coffee Company. In other words, they're not going to come. So I really think it's a huge issue, in my mind at least. I think it's a huge issue for us. If you're a conservative, I think it's a huge issue to essentially understand that the only way to move forward is to create your own content. It's one of the things. Did you see the Axios article the other day complaining about conservatives?
No, I didn't.
Axios article complaining about all the conservative outlets and what they're doing. But one of the things about it, you notice it, whether it was the Daily Caller, the Blaze, whether it was Breitbart, whether it was all these other ones. One of the things that they were all content creators. They all created content.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn Beck creates content. Ben Shapiro creates content. Joe Rogan creates content. Trump's not creating content. He's trying to he's trying to own the real estate. That's his belief. And he says, "Oh, I'll have a channel, and then everybody will funnel through it." Well, if it's crap, no one's going to come to it.
Right.
So it's I hate to say it, it's kind of like some of these like I'll never get on Newsmax, but OAN is actually trying hard to have good content. Fox has much better content than people give it credit for. It's targeted an audience, but the production values are incredibly high at Fox. MSNBC has the same thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But the point that I'm making to people is, I think Trump is going to take $600 or $700 million from private investors and completely waste. And I don't know if that's worth an SEC investigation. He's not getting government money. He's not doing anything. I don't understand the scandal. And I always worry about the people that cover it. They just want him to shut up. Well, he's got money. Going to spend it. Let him buy it,
Right. No, and just comes down to investors. I was looking at shorting DWAC the other day. I'm glad I didn't. It popped today on sort of additional absorption of the Nunez news. But, it wasn't just a high rate of interest that my brokerage wanted to short the stock. They said it's hard to borrow. We can't sell it to you short right now, meaning that probably that strongly implies a lot of other people are looking to short the stock because the valuation is already very significant, $2 billion market cap. That sort of depends. You have to parse how much left of DWAC because they could theoretically be investing in other companies, and they were popping around at a nominal level before the Trump thing. Anyway, the idea that this company will ever turn a profit, much less one that justifies a $2 billion valuation, is just kind of ludicrous.
Yeah, the only thing I hate to say is please don't short it because I'll be cheering against you. I love it when shorts get taken down for when they're putting something for basically political reasons. I mean, you're shorting them for the right reason. I don't see a talent base there. I don't see anything there. It's kind of like sometimes, for some strange reason, senior executives in major media companies still talk to me. You know what I'm saying? And, I was trying to sell the CNN should attack MSNBC and it's NBC to some guys that I know the other day who are their investment guys. And I know all of a sudden a friend from CNN called and said, "I hear you're saying this." And I said, "This is why I'm doing it." And all he said was, "That's interesting, Mark." And then I never heard back from him, So my point is I really think, we're at a stage now where Trump's going to probably see it. It'll keep making money. They're just established. Trump, who knows what he's going to do. The only thing I would say is the more Trump does stuff like this, the more it makes me think he's not running.
Yes, and that is, that's a positive thing. And again, just to be on record, I think Trump was remarkable. He created a new right. And so much about him, I think, was good, but I think it's time to pass the torch. So that's another reason why, I'm going to house on this media company because I think it deserves it. But sometimes I'm like, maybe we ought to be encouraging it nonetheless. So.
Yeah, look, I'm one of these ones a long time ago. I never pull for people to lose money. I never want people to lose their jobs. I think, I'm even like, the liberal media and all that stuff. I'm fine as long as, because I think we can beat them. But really, I have to say, if you're an investor, I just always feel sorry for these people. Like, in fact, I know a guy who invested in DWAC because he loves Trump. He's on my Facebook thing. He said, Trump's going to be a winner. He's always a winner. And I'm going like, all right, there you go. There's actually almost more logic behind investing in Robinhood, you know what I'm saying? And some other things there where it's just like, there's a rationale for it. I don't see it. I think the media landscape is a very, very tough place right now. And
Mhm.
I think the idea that you can show up and make money the way they think they're going to make money, I don't know what he does, you know.
Yeah.
And by the way, he'll have a very short lifespan because he's not one of these guys that's going to be able to get money again, you know what I'm saying, from other people.
Yep. Well, it's like Parler. They were supposed to be the conservative alternative to Twitter, but hey, you don't want to go into a network where it's just five of your fellow right wingers bitching about things, and so that's kind of over with. It seems now.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of over with, that's all the time we have for this episode of Simon and White. And if you like what you heard, please follow us on your podcast catalog or click follow on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, I should say. And we'll be back again soon with another episode. Thanks.